Thank you for joining us. We're going to be going through Business Analytics 101 today, Slaying the Revenue Beast. We got a little bit of a theme, and you'll know what I mean by that here in the next slide. Today, we're just going to be going through the basics of all of the business analytics modules that we have. Additional sessions will follow. We'll go through what those are going to entail at the end here. And today, you'll be joined by myself, Mason Martin. So I'm a customer success lead, as well as Nick Paladino. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm a principal solutions engineer. I've been with Blue Triangle about 2 years, but I was a customer for the 6 years before that. So it really feels like I've been here about 8. I'm using a lot of that practical knowledge. I was an SRE for 3 years and then ended up becoming a product manager where site performance was my product. So being able to leverage that and use that as business outcomes is kind of the core of why I'm part of this little committee of helping slaying the revenue beast. And we have this great picture here. That's us raising the swords together. We did some axe throwing as a team building exercise, and they had some swords for us to take pictures. And Mason and I just happened to do that. So that's where we got this brand from.
That's not the reason why we got put together on this.
That is not. No. That is not.
So you can't say you feel like you've been here for 8 years, because that outshines me. So I've been here about 6 years. Helping customers with wins. So, all right, let's jump into some of these modules. So this is the overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to step through all the modules in the business analytics, like I said earlier. I'll go fairly quickly through most of these. We'll do some in-depth on the bottom two in an additional session here. There are some key takeaways that I want to present you with today that will help you going forward. And it's, how do we look at the revenue actuals? And I'm just going to read this slide because why not? Loss and gain due to performance. Where do we need to focus efforts to improve that page speed? So even just directionally, how do we use this to dig in and find which page we want to focus on? As well as we just want you to have a basic understanding of core revenue modules, right? So that's the main goal of this. So I'm going to stop sharing this. Again, today's session is going to be going over Business Analytics 101. This is going to dive into quite a few different modules in the business analytics portion of our portal. This will not be covering dashboards or viewing revenue coming in live. However, we are going to show you how to dig into different segments of revenue, different opportunity due to slow pages, where we can do one-off calculations on some of that slow page attribution. We're going to take a quick look at broken links and how much money you may be losing due to those. And we're also going to take a look at just revenue due to performance. First page I want to take a look at here is revenue analysis. Now, all the data I'm showing you here is demo data, but all of the principles hold true for your site. This page gives us an actual look at revenue that's come in for a particular site. This particular view is broken down by traffic segment. Now, traffic segment is any session level segmentation that has been put in place to break down traffic. This allows us to take a look at traffic, in this case, by country, like which country is showing us the most revenue income. Right? We break that down by revenues, orders, sessions, total number of page views, even the conversion rate for these particular segments, as well as average order value and revenue per session. This isn't the only filter option that works on this page. Of course, if you're familiar with the portal, just about any other filter segmentation works here, whether that's device type or even A/B test segment. So feel free to slice and dice your revenue and conversion rate to what suits your needs. Right below this, we see a included in sales funnel. Now this is a sales funnel that's kind of stacked on top of each other, so you can modify this very quickly by just dragging things in and out of it. But the two of the graphs I like the best are these conversion rate and average order value and sessions over time, as well as this total revenue, page views, and orders over time. This gives us a view of orders, revenue, conversion rates over time so that we can see when traffic increases impacted our conversion rate. We can tie this in with other pages to see whether or not increases in, say, onload or other performance metrics are impacting our conversion rate or even orders or revenue. And just allow us to see what this stuff looks like over time so we can see where we are and where we need to be. The bottom graph here shows us revenue per session as well as page views per session. Still valuable, but depending on what you're looking at here, I think these middle two could really provide a lot of value when analyzing some of this data. As always, you can peel back the time frame here by modifying your time period in the filter options. Okay, from here I'm actually going to take us back into the menu because I forgot to mention something a little bit earlier. You may have seen brand right alongside revenue here. I'm going to explain what that is here in just a second. But revenue doesn't have to just be revenue, right? Every site has a conversion event of some type. If you're an e-commerce shop, revenue is revenue. You know what that is. But what if you're life insurance or something like that, right? What is a conversion event to you? Maybe that's getting a quote. What is a conversion event for, say, a hotel group? Maybe that's just booking a room. But you may also want to know if a campaign, a marketing campaign is successful, or if we're driving traffic to particular hotels or pages or whatever it may be for your particular industry. That's where we can also log brand. And this is basically just another conversion event, right? It may not necessarily be a monetary conversion, but it's something that you attribute value to, right? So we want to track that as well so that you can see, hey, are we driving traffic to this page? And if so, how are users performing when they hit these pages? Is there opportunity there? If we speed up these pages, could we be making a little bit more by not having users leave due to those slow pages, right? So that's brand in a nutshell. And that's something that we want to pay attention to as well. So I think the next page I want to take you to is actually slow pages, because I was just talking about performance tied to revenue. Let's go ahead and take a look. This particular page can be viewed in quite a few different ways. I'm actually going to switch this over to all devices. And what this does is it takes a look at, by default, your top 30 pages, and I'll show you that here. We take a look at the top 30 pages, and I'll mouse over this so you can see it. And it's all just based on traffic volume, right? So we dynamically pull those in and say, all right, hey, like in this case, PDP is our top most hit page. Let's run some attribution against that. And of course, we just work down the list and show you what that looks like. But this page will give you an idea of how much money we could gain by speeding up a particular page, okay? So I'll just give you some basics for the page itself first, and then we'll kind of dive into what we're doing here. So at the top of the page, we do keep a historical record of all of the reports that are run here, so don't worry about losing those. This can be run for web traffic, can also be run for native app traffic, or you can run them together, so we're doing both for this example. At the top, we can kind of see what that opportunity looks like for a given number of days. And you'll see me open this filter option here and there. In this case, I'm running this for 30 days. You can run this for 14. You can run it for a week. I can click it and show you, right? Any number of days that you want to run this for. In this case, again, for this example, we're running it for 30 days. So we're looking at all devices and the opportunity for that. And again, the opportunity here is basically, hey, we see people hitting some of these pages, right? We have a higher conversion rate that's occurring on a particular page at a particular on-load speed or TTI speed or whatever it may be that we're running this against. And again, I'll get into that in just a minute. But what is that opportunity? How much money are we leaving on the table by not speeding up these pages, right? So at the top of the screen, you can see per device type how much opportunity we may have. In this case, again, native app tacked on. You may not have that there if we don't have native app implemented. If we take a look at the bar graphs here, right below that, we can see what some of the totals are. Again, this kind of talks a little bit more about the revenue opportunity and what percentage of traffic we have on each of these browser types. Just below that, we can actually switch between device types, right? So right now you can see I have all devices selected. If I click into one of these others, you can see all of the information at the top changes, right? So I'm purely looking at the desktop browsers now. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, the table changes a little bit too, at least slightly, right? In most cases, the page names and the hits to each of those should be similar, right? But you can see here the order of these change. So we see that mobile has a little bit different of a flow or number of hits on some of these pages, right? Let's dig into desktop opportunity first. I think that's going to be interesting. If I scroll down just a little bit more, well, first of all, you can see revenue opportunity by page, right? Just stacked order. If I scroll down a little bit more, we can see what some of these page names look like. So for example, PDP here, on average, took about 6 seconds to load. Optimal page speed, based on, again, just actual data coming in, 2.5 seconds. Right, so what happens if we speed that up? Right? How much traffic is slower than the optimal page speed? Well, quite a bit. What's the revenue opportunity for this particular page? And then what if we load that page faster, right? 3 seconds faster, in fact. Well, hey, we get a lot of that opportunity. Well, hey, Mason, that may not be achievable. Okay, what if we loaded a second faster? What's the opportunity there? Well, 1 second's, ambitious. Well, I don't agree, but if you still think that's too ambitious, you can actually go in and edit that variable. And I'm not going to do this right now, but you can change this to like, well, half a second's achievable. Let's go ahead and put that in there and see what the opportunity looks like. So you can change these variables. It doesn't have to be a hard and fast 1, 2, 3 second. Okay. You can, in fact, export this table as well. So if you want to take a look at it somewhere else, you can export that. That's the same for any other table that we have in the portal. So don't forget that exists. So where do we go from here? Well, if I want to see a little bit more information about maybe the conversion rate curve on this PDP page, all I have to do is click this little graph button. When I click that, I can see what the conversion rate, the average order value, page views are for this particular page name. I can see what that conversion rate curve looks like, right? So when we say there's opportunity and we want to speed up some of these pages, what's the concept here? Well, basically, what if we took this bubble of users here, this blue bubble, and we just moved it left on the conversion rate curve? That's the simplest way to think about it. Well, if we move the bulk of these users left, we're going to have a higher conversion rate, right? And again, this is all just based on performance. You can toggle on some additional lines here in case you wanted to see perhaps what the page views per session were or the average order value was and that kind of thing. And what if we sped up users to a particular mark, right? How much can we gain? So if I sped up the page to about 4 seconds, we get $320,000 gain. That's pretty good. And again, this is for a 30-day time period, right? So that's just multiplied out over the year. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this. These totals are just for whatever date range and time period we're selecting, right? In this case, again, 30 days. I like this graph here at the bottom is, what if we speed up the page by, some amount of time? What does it look like, right? So we can really, instead of having to change these what if variables every time, you can actually just mouse over this and see what the page speed looks like as it starts to speed up. Right? What if we increase the speed? Now you'll notice this is a pretty straightforward conversion rate curve, right? Now, not all pages are going to behave this way, and we realize that, right? So in a later session, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some different conversion rate curves. Let me see if I can actually find one that looks a little bit strange. So you'll notice this page here, account, has a $0 revenue opportunity, right? Why is that? Was this page perfect? Probably not, right? Let's take a look at the conversion rate curve. There it is. Okay, so you can see this is less of a standard conversion rate curve. It's kind of backwards, right? We don't want to move users left on this according to this graph, right? We don't want to move users left and speed it up because, well, hey, look, it's got a lower conversion rate. Again, we're going to get into these in a later session, but this may mean that the page is not loading correctly or people are interacting with this page in a strange way that's causing this conversion rate curve to go sideways. So I'll not speak too much further on that. I don't want to steal Nick's thunder, but just know that not every conversion rate curve is going to be that lovely downward sloping conversion rate curve that we see on some of these higher opportunity pages, right? We may even see some, let's see if we can find another one. I'm going to click through a couple of these very quickly. We may even see some opportunities that are up and down a little bit, and yeah, I'm not finding any just yet. So I'll stop there talking about conversion rate curves. Again, I don't want to steal Nick's thunder, although it would be funny. So let's go ahead and move on to some additional pages. I think we get the gist of how the slow pages page works. So the next page I want to take you to is actually going to be right under the slow pages, which is broken links. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but we don't just lose revenue due to slow pages, right? We may also lose that to users hitting broken links, okay? Or, and again, I'm not going to cover this on this particular session, but out of stock plays similarly to the way broken links do, right? So think of these two in a similar fashion, but one's just, hey, somebody's getting an error page on broken links versus, hey, somebody's just hitting an out of stock product, right? So broken links opportunity. This may look familiar. We are taking a look at the opportunity for the site based off of an active rule that we've put in place on an error page. I'll show you that rule in just a minute and how to configure that shortly. But just as an overview, you can see here, again, high level at the top. Now, this is a pretty small opportunity. I think my time period is set to a day. We can very easily query something a little bit longer. Let me show you how to do that. So let's just go ahead and grab a week. I'm going to zero out my calendar. We're going to apply that. Here we go. So while we're drawing this, again, this breaks everything down by all devices or just desktop or mobile or tablet. So you may have more opportunity on one or the other. Maybe we have a link that's broken more often on desktop, or we're driving more users to broken links on mobile or something like that. In this case, it looks pretty similar across the board. But the bar charts right below this, again, hey, what's the opportunity? What percentage of traffic is each of that? So again, very similar to that slow pages page that we were just taking a look at. And then down below that, we can actually see, hey, look, what's the opportunity based off of just users hitting these error pages, right? And abandoning the site. Right? So if a user hits a particular page that we've configured here and then leaves, that's going to leave some opportunity on the page or on the table. Now, you may be thinking, all right, well, hey, we've got bots that are hitting the site. I don't want to see the opportunity based on those because, you know, they're hitting the page and leaving right away. So we allow you to configure this rule here, which is, hey, only trigger if people have hit one of the error pages that we've put in place, right? So again, this demo, I've got 4 pages configured here, but we can also define a serious shopper, right? So we can weed out some of those bots, which is, hey, this shopper or user or session must have at least X number of pages to be considered serious, right? And they must at least hit one of the pages that I've defined. And this can be whatever we have in there. But for this example, we have it configured to at least, a product page. We want to know if they have to have at least 1 page in their session and they have to hit a product page. This could be 3 pages and, an account page or whatever it may be, right? But as long as we're tracking these correctly and we define a serious shopper correctly, then we're going to have some pretty good eyes on what's causing some of this opportunity. Now, I won't go into the report itself of what links are broken and what the referrers are for all that, but know that that exists and that there is opportunity attributed to broken links. So let's go ahead and move on to the next page. So I think the next page I want to take you to is actually going to be Revenue Calculator. Now, this is kind of, I won't spend a lot of time on Revenue Calculator. Again, I don't want to steal Nick's thunder, but this is going to be a pretty interesting page for you. So I actually have this up already, and I've pulled the page home, set this to mobile, right? So we're looking at home page. We're looking at mobile devices. We can switch this over to desktop if we want. And I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it at 24 hours. So we're going to leave that as is. Now this is, again, going to look very similar to what we were seeing over on the slow pages report. So if I go back over here, Let's close my menu. And I go down to homepage. Oh, wait a minute, that looks pretty similar, right? Now, the difference is I'm looking at 24 hours versus a 30-day view, okay? So the opportunity for the last 24 hours may not be the same as the opportunity for that last 30 days, right? So it's quite a bit different. But the same principles apply. If I want to look at a single page in isolation for a particular device type, I can do that here. You'll notice that I'm looking at the 80th percentile. Again, you can go in here and modify this if you'd like, either here at the top of the page or in your filter options. And you can actually also just run this for a different performance metric. Now, again, I have this set to onload. The slow page report is the same way. You can actually change what metric you're looking at to see, hey, are users more sensitive to onload on my site, on my page? Are they more sensitive to largest contentful paint? And we can run this a couple different ways to see what users are most sensitive to. Okay. Now, top of the page, we can see for the given time period a lot of different metrics. I won't go into each of those. Right below that, we can see conversion rate over time. Again, what if we move these users left to speed things up? These here at the bottom, again, what if users are sped up by X seconds, 1 second, right? How much money do I gain? What's the opportunity? If I scroll down just a little bit more, again, we can see that conversion rate and average order value and converted sessions over time, much like we saw in that revenue analysis page. But the real interesting thing here is that you can run different time periods on this. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I want to show you this. So if I add a comparison here, I can actually overlay different time periods. Let's just do the same day, same time last week. I'm just going to name this last week. Right? I'm going to turn on, let's see, I'm going to turn on page views per session. No, actually, let's change that. Percentage of total sessions and hit go. Again, homepage, mobile device, add that in. So now I'm looking at the same page from today and last week, right? And we can overlay these in the opportunity and the actuals from last week compared to today. We can toggle some of this stuff on and off. Not going to go into too much detail on it. Again, I don't want to steal Nick's thunder. I probably said that 4 or 5 times now, but some of the later sessions are going to be pretty interesting in how we look at different conversion rate curves, how we look at different comparisons and different calculators, and what information we can glean from that. So the final page I want to take us to is actually revenue attribution. So let me show you where that lives. Right here. Revenue attribution is an interesting one. This is looking at how much revenue is attributed to page load time. Well, here you go at the top. Purely based on performance, right? So we can see PDP, category, homepage, and search all attributed more revenue to performance versus the comparison period, right? So what this does, I'm going to open this up so that you can see. This actually lets me set a date of performance change, right? So maybe I had a release that went out on the 7th. Then I look at a 7-day period before and a 7-day period after that date of performance change. And I say, okay, what was the revenue before and after? Did we have gains or losses? And again, purely attributed to performance. You can see my bag got worse for whatever reason, right? We won't go into how to dig into some of that stuff now, but we want to know, hey, did it get better? Did it get worse? How much was attributed to these? Total sales and everything attributed to performance at the top, but maybe I only care about homepage. So actually, all you have to do, you can actually just click into this. I'll show you that live. Okay, so we can see the before period versus the after period, right? Onload was 6.1 seconds, dropped down to 4.7 seconds. That's a pretty big onload difference for a $155,000 gain. Now, I think I have a display bug here. So that's no good. How about I do this? This is what I'm going to do. We'll just put this over top. And there you go. That's a plus, right? All right. So it should look like this. It should be a positive revenue difference. I don't know why I have a display bug, but that's okay. We then go into the methodology of how this is calculated and talking a little bit about what the baseline traffic shape looks like before, then after, right? And this just kind of walks you through the steps of each of these, overlays it, normalizes that traffic volume, and compares it one versus the other. So again, we're comparing just purely due to performance. What does this look like? right? So this is another interesting page that I think we're going to jump into a lot more detail later on in another session, but I wanted to give you a taste for it now. So let me go ahead and stop there. Nick, anything you want to add in on this, or should we go ahead and jump to Q&A?
No, I think that's really great, Mason. Thank you so much. So we can start taking some questions if anybody wants to ask a question, but it's a really good start, and it's clear that I'm going to have to bring some thunder on the next session, right? Because that's definitely the prevailing theme now.
All right, so we're including some online guides here, and then we want to know, how can we help you, right?
Adam has a great question.
Oh,
Is
we got
80th percentile an e-commerce standard that's used for metrics? That is a fantastic question, because, and we're going to go into this in more detail during my thunder session. What's going to come out in that, Adam, is the 80th percentile that you were seeing select in the charts today is actually really a trim. And so it's us saying, let's take the bottom 20%, the worst 20%, and remove that from our analysis, because if we include that, we start getting a lot of really bad outliers that are really impacting our data models. So we want to make sure that we're trimming that at the 80th percentile. So calling it a percentile, like in the same sense that you're thinking of, say, Google Core Web Vitals, where they say the 75th percentile, that's a little different because you're actually selecting a very specific dot. So we're using the 80th percentile as our moment to say, this is where we stop our analysis. And we generally find that 80th percentile is a very good number to start with your analysis. Sometimes data sets do get really large, and then we want to zero in a little bit more than that, or maybe they're a little bit too sporadic because there's a bug on the page, something like that. So we want to zoom out a little bit. So there's a lot of use case here and there that during the thunder phase we're definitely gonna cover it.
Awesome. Any other questions? So I got one kind of back channel to me, which was, hey, can I change the page names that are shown on the revenue opportunity report? The answer is yes. I would be careful with that. However, you may be missing some key pages that have the highest opportunity, right? By default, the revenue opportunity page pulls in the top 30 most hit pages, and some of those will have revenue opportunity and some won't. This may also include virtual turn pages, so we didn't really get into a whole lot of like the SPA page turns. Those still have opportunity as well. All of that can be modified, but again, if you're modifying this report just to show somebody, hey, look, we've got no revenue opportunity because everything's perfect, that's not the way to go about it, right? We want to make sure that you're looking at pages that are relevant, that are going to have opportunity, and you want to go in there and fix some of those. All right, I think we have one more question. Nick, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So revenue attribution report, it's all around selecting which metric we model after. So we do support several different metrics in there. Off the top of my head, I don't remember all of them. I believe it's 5 or 6. The Core Web Vitals are definitely a part of it. I'll have to make sure that TTFB is or is not included, and we can go over that in the next session. Meredith, that is a good question, but we can use other metrics than onload. The main reason we start with onload is because it's a good understanding of when the customer experience is completed. So for instance, with Core Web Vitals, largest contentful paint may have and imply a revenue difference as you're making changes, or a business outcome difference as you're making changes. But because that's happening at an early state in the page, it's really the moment where customers feel like they should be able to interact. Whereas onload is giving a good moment where things are complete. Now, we might find a correlation, like in your case, to TTFB. That's a very good thing for us to dive into and look at. Or we might find a correlation in largest contentful paint or time to interactive, for instance. So there's a lot of different ways we can start approaching that. But yes, we do support other metrics. Onload is just the one we start with.
Should I mention Thunder one more time?
I mean, I think everybody wants it at this point.
Okay. All right. Next time we'll have to Photoshop Nick on like a lightning page or something. All right. I think that's probably good for today. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. The next session, we're going to go into more detail, if you could tell by my thunder statements, on revenue calculator, revenue attribution. And then the session after that is going to be all about different conversion rate curves, which should be really interesting. Nick could probably speak for 3 hours on that, but we're going to try to limit him to 20-ish minutes. Maybe. We'll see. So thank you again for joining.